This video shows how to use Deskera's Human Resource Management System, or HRMS, to run a basic payroll process that should be common to most companies in Singapore. First, I will demonstrate how to prepare the minimum required company information, payroll components, and employee information. I will use the example of a fictional new employee who is either a Singaporean or permanent resident, works Monday to Friday with regular office hours, and receives his pay monthly in Singapore dollars through Giro bank transfer. I'll then demonstrate how to create the payroll and get it calculated, authorized, and processed. The results will be itemized payslips which employees can view or download, various IRAS and CPF e-submission files to be uploaded to the respective government websites, and the Giro file which you give to your bank for transferring the salaries to your employees. Note that in this video, I perform everything using a company administrator account with full access to all features. But in actual practice, these payroll duties are hardly ever performed by a single person, since the separation of payroll duties is a best practice that provides checks and balances for those handling sensitive payroll data, thus preventing clerical errors and payroll fraud. Deskera's HRMS lets administrators grant or deny your users access to specific modules, so that payroll duties are segregated between record keeping, payroll calculation, authorization, processing, and reviewing. However, this video will not discuss how to manage such permissions. So just keep in mind that the tasks seen here can be segregated based on your organization's structure and internal controls. Before we start, please pause the video to note the following, as these may affect how you follow this video. Let's begin. In the app's dashboard page, head to the Quick Links section, click on Administration, and you will see this User Administration tab. This is where you first register all employees into the system and specify their basic information that is universal to all Deskera apps. Additional information required for payroll will be defined later in HRMS. Let's assume that we have to register a new employee who just joined, so we'll have to go through User Management and click Create User. I'll call him Sean Tan. Note that his login username should not contain spaces. Now I'll just invent some information to fill up the other mandatory fields. At this point, the system allows me to create him. However, I missed out some information that can affect his payroll, so I shall go back to edit it by selecting him, going to User Management, and this time clicking Edit. His date of joining, date of confirmation, and date of termination will affect how HRMS calculates his working time, so I'll have to input correct values. I'll grant him user-level access to Deskera's eLeave, eClaims, and HRMS so that he can at least file his leaves and claims and view all of his payslips. Under the Company Administration tab, check the following settings but do not change their values without careful consideration or approval, as they will affect many existing records across all Deskera apps. The country should be set as Singapore, currency as Singapore dollar, and time zone as GMT plus 800 Singapore. Note that you can still pay salaries in other currencies. Now go to HRMS and click Master Configuration. Make sure your company's financial month is set correctly. Tick Account and Tax Details. Tick eClaim Integration and eLeave Integration so that payroll calculation factors in reimbursement and leave data from those apps. On the left side, click Employee Bank Name. You can add your employee's bank if it's not already listed here. Make sure that Swift BIC is specified for all these entries because it's necessary for generating Giro files. Go to the Modules Configuration tab. Under Subscribed Modules, make sure to tick your company's subscription to payroll management. Otherwise, the payroll and payroll report widgets will not be available to all users in HRMS. No matter how frequently an employee receives his pay, be it monthly, twice a month, weekly, or hourly, his payroll needs to be identified as part of a monthly recurring pay cycle, which we define here in Pay Cycle Configuration simply by specifying the name of the pay cycle and on what day in any month it starts on. I'll use the existing default, but you can always add or edit your own pay cycles. This weekly off section is where you set your default company-wide weekly off days. However, if an employee works in special shifts, which you define in Deskera's eLeave system, you can still make HRMS factor in the shift data from eLeave to calculate his off days. Your leave without pay entity should be set to working days so that the above weekly off days and public holidays will be calculated as unpaid leaves for employees working on regular office hours. Under the Giro Field section, tick Salary Giro and click on Giro Bank Details. This is where you specify all your company bank accounts, which you intend to deduct from when paying your employee's salary through gyro transfer. Key in new bank account details here. Clicking Save adds whatever you typed in these fields as a new account to the list, whereas clicking Edit overwrites the selected existing account. Make sure to correctly specify your company's CPF incorporation date, as this is required by the Appendix 8B form. Click Add/Edit CPF account. You need at least one company's CPF account before the system can generate any CPF e-submission file. You can create a new CPF account by clicking Add and filling out the form that follows. Any payroll amounts such as earnings, deductions, allowances, and more have to be defined as a payroll component, except for system components like employee and employer CPF and any regulatory component for Singapore. All components are adjustable unless they are fixed across the company. Let's look at how a basic pay component should be created. Code is the component's name, which uniquely identifies it from other components. The description you give it should be meaningful. Basic pay should be CPF applicable and National Service Pay applicable. Wherever CPF is applicable, Skills Development Levy is almost always applicable too. Taxable should be ticked and be mapped to gross salary under IRS section, because any payment a company gives to its employees is taxable. Tick Adjustable if you want to be able to change the component's amount after payroll generation and calculation has already started. This is used more for variable pay like bonuses, allowances, and commission. But for security reasons, it's rarely applied for fixed pay such as this basic pay, so I'll leave this unticked. Tick LWP applicable so that no pay leaves are factors in calculating basic pay. Set the payslip preference to default. Tick proration applicable so that you can give prorated salary for when the employee works an incomplete month. Method is how the component's amount is calculated. Selecting percentage or formula is appropriate for commission components. But for basic pay, I should set it to amount. Default amount doesn't matter because basic pay amount is not constant for all employees, so I'll set it to 0. I won't discuss other fields as they mostly vary from company to company. Let's go to the user administration module. This is where you can define the more payroll-related information for your employees. This search box lets you find your employee by his name, username, or email address. The advanced search lets you find him using other details that you may know of. If there's little or no results, make sure to broaden the search by choosing All for these drop-down list boxes. If you don't remember his details, it's useful to know that all newly added employees are assigned a default monthly frequency and a default payroll source as HRMS. If you need to browse through a long list of employees, it's useful to sort the list according to a specific column, and be sure to check every page or just display more items per page. Here is our new employee, already with his basic information that we keyed in earlier in the apps dashboard. Additional details are required in order to generate his payroll in compliance with Singapore law. Select him and run the User Setup Wizard. Simply fill out all employee details as prompted. Note that race and religion are mandatory because these determine which self-help group fund the employee must contribute to, such as ECF, CINDA, CDAC, or MBMF. Specify the employee's annual cost to the company here. Date of joining is important for calculating probation of salary. Bank account details are needed for gyro payment. Assigned frequency is how frequently he receives his paycheck, and it's capped at every month as required by Singapore law. The payroll source holds the details of the employee's working days, which are needed to calculate his unpaid leaves. Set it to HRMS if the employee's work schedule and off days follow the company's default as seen earlier. This is recommended for those 9-to-5 jobs, and note that you can always key in manually recorded unpaid leaves later when you are calculating his payroll. However, if you need to factor in leave policies, strict attendance timekeeping, and multiple shifts, then you need to set the payroll source to e-leave. You can define 2 kinds of overtime hours and their rates. Once you click Save, you'll be presented with the Assign Payroll Component screen. Assign basic pay and other applicable earnings and deductions. Go to Personnel Actions and click View/Edit Profile. Much of the information from the User Setup Wizard is here, but we need to set the payment method to gyro, otherwise the person will not be included in the gyro file. We still need to define how much his basic pay is. Go back to Payroll Components, select Basic Pay, and click Manage Component. Look for his name on the list. Since his salary does not change depending on the month, we don't have to enter it one by one for each month. So select him and click Mass Update Amount for Users. Select For All Periods and enter his monthly salary here. We are now ready to use this module to generate his payroll along with other employees and calculate all the amounts payable. First, make sure that you are paying for the correct time period, and under Select Status, choose Not Started. Find our new employee and select him. Click Manage Components. We can't choose Assign Previous Salary Components because this is the first time our employee is being paid, so choose Assign Default Components. The default components that we defined earlier are automatically chosen, but you can still edit which components are to be assigned for this period. Click Save. Note that when assigning components for multiple selected employees, you will not see the Assign Components window, and the system will straight away assign every employee's default components, or if you want, the components from the previous salary period. The employees are now moved to the Entered status. Before we proceed to let the system calculate their pay, we can review the details and, if necessary, make a few adjustments to the assigned components, the amount for each component, or to some of these employee details. If everything seems to be in order, select the employees and hit Calculate. Here we must specify each employee's accumulated number of unpaid leaves for this period, not inclusive of normal off days and public holidays. When done, click Submit and the system will calculate their pay. In this dialog box, choosing not to process more will only send email notifications to people concerned with authorizing the calculated payroll. You can still calculate the pay for more employees whether you choose yes or no. Just so you know, the email template can be configured here. The employees are now moved to the calculated status. All payroll records listed here are pending authorization. You can still override the calculated amounts for some components, and such adjustments will be reflected on the Payroll Adjustment Report. Let's proceed to the next module to authorize the calculated payroll records. Again, make sure to view the correct time period, and under Select Status, choose Calculated. Anyone assigned to this module should review the payroll records. If you notice discrepancies with, let's say, these records, you can unauthorize them and comment your reasons for doing so that whoever was using the previous module can look for them under the unauthorized status and recalculate their pay. Otherwise, if there's nothing wrong with the payroll records, select them and click Authorize. Authorized payroll records make it to the Process Payroll module, where you generate their gyro file or paychecks and set the date when the employees will be able to see their payslips. Again, make sure to view the correct time period, and under Select Status, choose Authorized. Whoever is assigned to this module should also review the data and unauthorize it if they find any discrepancies. Select everyone and click Process. Here you can define, amongst other things, when the employees get paid, followed by when they receive their payslips. Under Process, select Trial if you just want to draft the payslips and CPF e-submission files. This is useful if payday is quite some time away and you'd expect last-minute pay changes to occur. And if they do occur, you can unauthorize the employee payroll record. Otherwise, select Final and specify the date when the payslip can be viewed. You have the option to mail the payslip directly to the employee prior to the payslip view date. If your organization uses the Deskera accounting module, it's advisable to synchronize the finalized payroll records to it. The gyro file is generated here. Ensure you are looking at the correct range of dates, and under Gyro File Status, select Pending. Choose the company bank and account number which the pay gets transferred from, and give a unique beneficiary reference. Choose a working day on which the bank will execute the transaction. Select everyone and click Generate Gyro File, and the gyro file will be downloaded. Previously generated gyro files can be downloaded again from the gyro file log. The CPF e-submission files can be downloaded from here. Select the correct dates and desired type of CPF file. Under Status, select Final and click Download. It's the same thing for IRS e-submission files, which can be downloaded from here. Employees will be able to view and download their payslips when they log into HRMS and click My Payslip. Note that the payslip won't appear here prior to its view date, which we specified earlier. Last but not least, if you need to undo any steps in this payroll process, it has to be done in reverse fashion. Note that gyro file generation cannot be undone or repeated. In the Process Payroll module, records under the processed final status can be reverted back to trial state, but only if the employee's payroll for the next cycle has not yet been generated. Records under the processed trial status can be unauthorized. In the Generate Payroll module, unauthorized records can either be recalculated or deleted. Records under the calculated or entered status can only be deleted. All deleted records go back to not started. And with that, we've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful, and please feel free to contact our support staff if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.
For more information, please visit our website at pixelcareconsulting.com.